Ramachaloka Dipati Sahampati Katanjaliana Viradhammo Yachata Sandita Sata Parajaka Jatika Desi Tudamam Anukam Imam Pajam.
Do you sing in a choir?
Yeah, I used to.
Very nice.
It's my only chance now.
My dad used to sing in a choir, so we used to have choir music piping through the house so loud that we forced Dad to have earphones. Usually it's the kids that get the earphones. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Good evening to all our Zoom friends. So all good? Yeah? All good? Okay. Natives are restless. Firecrackers. What is it? This firecrackers. So right meditation in Theravada Buddhism should be in the context of the Four Noble Truths, and I think that's important. And so just to remember, there is suffering, there's the cause, there's the end, and there's the path that leads to the end of suffering. Now, the way that's said, it's said from the perspective of Dharma reality as opposed to conventional reality. So it's said, there is suffering. And that's important, because you're looking at it as a Dharma in a stream of consciousness. In the conventional realm, I am suffering. So if I had a business and the taxman said we're going to do an audit, and even though I knew my books were pretty good, I could get quite nervous and quite afraid. But I wouldn't just watch the fear. I'd get my books together. So that's a conventional truth. And always it's important that both, it's like trust in Allah and tie your camel. if you see what I mean. So the conventional truth, reality is very important, but in this context, we're dealing more with Dhamma reality. So the statement there is suffering is actually an awakening to the feeling of discontent, or whatever way that suffering might arise. It might be minor, just being irritated at something. It might be major, like a lot of fear. So that's important to see. So when you awaken to suffering, you're getting behind the narrative. In the conventional sense, you're in the narrative. You have to deal with it, and getting behind the narrative is getting beyond the I thinking. So you ask yourself, well, why is there this? What is this discontent? What is it like, really? Well, it's because of those taxmen or women. Women in the tax department, I'm sure. No, it's not that. It's something deeper. It's a Dharma reality. And what's that? Oh, fear. Okay, so that's seeing fear as an object. And then you have the path, really. Then you can start to make choices and practice. If you don't get that and you're just in a narrative, then conventionally you can deal with it, but you don't really deal with the heart of the matter. So I've as an analogy, I've been given a very fantastic rug loom, which is really fantastic. I mean, it's really fantastic. And so I've been, like I said, I'm down this rabbit hole of rug weaving right now, and it's very interesting on so many levels. But one of the things that just, so if I make a mistake in the weaving itself, and I then see the mistake, and then I know how to go backwards, and which pedals to press, and etc., I can unweave it. There's a kind of satisfaction in understanding how to undo it, and that gives me confidence in how to do it. You see what I mean? Like, was that like deconstructing or something? And it's an interesting form of confidence. It comes from a mistake, but I look at, okay, why is that? And why is that? Oh yeah, okay, I got it, nailed it. Or I just put on a new warp, 20-foot long warp. I want to do a few rugs. So the math is interesting. There's 20, so it's 20 foot, 150 times. So it's 3,000 feet of string. If you get that wrong, it's like spaghetti junction. So it's a lovely manual challenge, intellectual challenge, and so on. But this idea, and then so I put a new warp on, and there were like 4 or 5 mistakes, but I spotted them, before I'd started weaving much, and I could correct them. Again, that same sense of confidence and satisfaction. Okay, I know what I'm doing here. Nice feeling. So in the same way, I think the Four Noble Truths are your kind of go-to when all else fails. Read the instructions, and the instructions, you're suffering. Yeah? And so awaken to suffering. And then what's the cause? It's, well, I want something that I don't have, or I have something that I don't want. Simple enough. And what would be the end of it? I have to let go of that. I have to let go of the wanting. What's the wanting? Where's the wanting? Now the question of wanting, obviously there's functional wanting. There's nothing wrong with wanting. Again, I want to put honey on my toast. It's not about that. It's not trivial. It's more about this kind of existential problem of kind of getting caught and in the flow of consciousness, and then suffering because of ignorance, because of wrong understanding, as we say. So, for instance, if you're meditating, and I set the clock for 50 minutes, and then usually, probably most people, after 40 minutes maybe, or half an hour, the thought comes up, how much more? That's common. If your meditation is going really well, you're surprised at the end, but I think for the most part, how much more comes up. So there's sort of a bit of restlessness there. And then if you look at the clock, and there's 20 minutes left, you're in trouble. Then it's like, that much more? Am I going to get through this? So that's dukkha, that's suffering. And rather than really awakening to that, what happens is we meditate, not all the time, but this is not unheard of. We meditate, but in the background there's like, how much more? Or should I look at the clock or not? So there's a kind of wanting there. There's the wanting of the meditation to end. And it's not gross, we can sit through it because we were meditating. But to awaken to that, what's the wanting? And really to feel the tension of wanting, the restlessness of wanting, and say, wanting feels like this. Now this is a feeling of time, or a feeling of I'm not getting anywhere, whatever it might be. You don't have to verbalize it. Once you get a hold of that, then you're really in the present moment. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to sustain present moment awareness for long periods of time. And it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal in terms of the quality of the meditation. So when all else fails, read the instructions, but we can inadvertently, we can be heedless around that. We keep trying. It's not that we kind of give up and walk out and go to the movies. We keep trying, but the refinement of present moment awareness is a kind of skill that you get better and better at, and the fluctuations of suffering become more and more apparent, and you go back to the drawing board, wanting. What do I want? Or you don't even know, what do I want? Just what does wanting feel like? What does suffering feel like? So you're coming back to the same basic principle of awareness of the way things are. Third noble truth is desirelessness, or the cessation of desire, put it another way. The cessation of desire then sounds like an event, doesn't it, to me? This event called cessation of desire. Next week, next year, it should have happened last year, 50 years, it hasn't happened. What the heck's going on? I shouldn't have done this. Something like that. But desirelessness, to me, is a kind of more helpful word, I think, because it points to something I can know right now. And it is the cessation of desire. Desirelessness is a cessation of desire. But when I put that word into my practice, into my mind, desirelessness, it creates a kind of mirror reflection to actually what kind of energy I'm putting forth into paying attention. And so this language that I use, non-becoming, non-resistance, desirelessness, is the language of attitudes, and it's in line with the Four Noble Truths. But it's not an event that you have to get later on. It's something you can notice right now, like desirelessness. What would that mean? What does that feel like? So the kind of capacity to inquire in a silent way for me is makes it really interesting and very, very important. I like inquiry. I like using like this lovely reflection from Simone Weil, that compassion directed to oneself is true humility. And oh, that's interesting. So then I take an idea like that, and I think, well, what isn't desirelessness humility? It's not all analytical, but I come to the same conclusion that the heart which is open and present and silent is really the path. What I would like to constantly remember. What I found in these kind of meditations is the ability to know things as they are is actually very subtle, because quite often I found in my own makeup is I'm looking for something, and I actually, as opposed to looking at what is, looking for something, and there's a kind of tension there that is not gross, but the mind doesn't really settle into the way things are. So this kind of loving kindness mantra, someone asked about that, how I used it. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe. Where are you? Okay, here it is. This afternoon you suggested working through latent tendencies, etc. No. You have found the mantra, I have loved you, I have always loved you, I will always love you, helpful. This is using right effort, right thought. Question. Are you loving the monk Viradhammo, turning the tables? are you loving negative, are you loving negating the negative conditional commentary, the path? Are you loving the knowing the relationship of seeing the object in the background in awareness? Or are you all this? I'd say all the above and none. So, just to explain where I'm coming from with this. So my own practice is lots of time I just get intuitions. I guess we all do, don't we? You say, well, and I like to read across disciplines, and I talk a lot with people, and so for some reason these thoughts came up. I love you. I've always loved you, and I will always love you. I said, really? I said, okay, I'll give it a go. Let's see what happens. So then I just used it a lot, and then I began to see its relevance to my own mind. Now, when you're considering Dharma reality, you're considering stream of consciousness, and then there is no real other person. It's just stream of consciousness, and in stream of consciousness, if one puts in wholesome states of mind, then that's going to be very beneficial for stream of consciousness, because that will be the way that stream of consciousness evolves and responds and then abides in that kind of. So it's not, to me, it's not like it doesn't need all that breakdown of definition. Don't really care. I just say it. And then the effect of that was that okay, when like I can suffer if I have had an exchange in dialogue or something, and I feel I've been ineffective in some way. So that's where my self-disparaging mind can come up. So I was just doing the mantra, said, and now there's the doubting self-critical mind. Not that I can't use that. I mean, I can use it too, but in this case, just Dharma reality. Oh, and I love you. And I've always loved you. And oh, yeah, that feels all right. That works. So I found that in terms of the Four Noble Truths, the Second Noble Truth talks about the three types of craving, bhava, vibhava, and kama tanha. And vibhava is the desire to get rid of, or resistance, or trying to annihilate, and I found it incredibly effective for that. Really, really effective. And there's a lot in our makeup, in our conditioning, in our cultural makeup, in our familial makeup, which has self-disparagement in it. And because we're all intellectually conditioned, like we have a lot of intellectual tools that we use and skills, then the critical mind is very, very strong, and so that can be misdirected and misused. So I found that's really simple. So now I can just use that if I want, but sometimes I just feel that it doesn't feel balanced. Why it doesn't feel? There's no heart. Okay, I love you. I've always loved you. I will always love you. All right, we get a little bit of tone into this now. Tuning up the instrument. And so I just found it kind of, it is an aspect of metta bhavana. And just I found the language to be quite powerful. Metta I don't find is a powerful word for me, because I didn't grow up with it. I know, like Venerable Arnprior grew up in India. It's a very powerful word, or the Thai people, very, very powerful. But for me, love is a very powerful word. It's a different kind of a word, so it has a more powerful impact on me in the use of that word. So if you are using the instructions of the Four Noble Truths, then as you adopt this there is suffering attitude rather than I am suffering, that's very important, obviously. Having done that, then inquiry can take place. Well, what is it? What's going on right now? And quite often the suffering just falls away because you're attentive. But if it's not the case, and the example I give around my own social anxieties and fears, the problem wasn't the habit of social anxiety, it was the desire not to get rid of it. And so the obvious solution, I wish I would have known that mantra 48 years ago. But I use the same methodology of, there's fear. I love you. I've always loved you. I will always love you. And then that makes sense, doesn't it? Because the fear is a conditioned phenomena that comes from childhood, from culture, for makeup, DNA, I don't know, past lives, doesn't really matter. And it just comes unbidden. No one asks for this. And then what? Well, what's the suffering? And that's an interesting question there, because the answer was constantly, well, the suffering is the fear, but no. It's not the particular condition, because the condition has arisen. It's just the way it is. But actually, it's the resistance to it in this case. And that difference, it's easy to say it, but quite often our habits of mind are so entrenched that we don't see the difference. But then, and that's where you get the confidence. You kind of like unweave it. Well, what's the real problem here? And then when you see that, like if it's a really insidious kind of habit, then it's not going to end just by the insight. You have to apply that insight. So I'm going to make mistakes in the weaving. I'm going to get, and I'm going to have to unweave it again. And when all else fails, read the instructions. What do I want that I don't have? What do I have that I don't want? So I found that just that simple model of awakening to suffering, and Luang Por Sumedho, that's his core teaching, and I'm his disciple, Ajahn Chah. And sometimes that core teaching is dismissed as being beginner's Buddhism. No. You want the emptiness, man. You want that really. Well, yeah. But why don't you just trust in this? Trust in this. So when you start to use the language of non-desire, desirelessness, you start to, it's really relaxed. And then the attention has the purity of non-desire. There's no agenda. And then what happens is you have a mystical experience. And then the next day it's gone. And then you try for the next 5 years to have a mystical experience. And you forget the instructions. Why am I suffering? Well, because I can't get that mystical experience. I had it yesterday. I just try harder. And then 5 years later, why am I suffering? Because I want something that I don't have. And I mean, I've been through that. You get this really cool insight, or your mind is just like, oh man, this is bliss, this is good. And then desire arises, and then it comes up again. So like Zen mind, beginner's mind, or the idea, just burn it all up, let it all go. All your insights, just let them all go. I often talk about Luang Por Liam's biography in, what's the book? What's that book? In Luang Por Liam's book, what is it called?
No worries.
Huh?
No worries.
No worries, thank you. I always forget that, I don't know why. And in it, he describes his enlightenment experience, more than that, but what I find fascinating, it's in ordinary language, but his mind is just in all kinds of blissful states. And he says, yeah, and it was just bliss. And he's just mindful of it. And then, whoa. And then he has a whole day of dullness. Dullness just kind of crushes him. And dullness went this way. He's got just back with the same. So his practice in that period was so rigorous, it's almost superhuman, the number of hours he spent. But what struck me was he just had this rigorous awareness of the way things are, awareness of the way things are, awareness of the way things are. And to me, that's really, if it's samadhi, that must be what we mean. It must be something which is in line with desirelessness. So right effort, if it's conjoined with trying to get something, how could that be right effort? Trying to get rid of something, how could that be right effort? But if it's a rigorous presence, and I think that's why Luang Por's mantra of "it's like this" is so very powerful. Now, again, of those of you who have listened to his talks, how many millions of times have we heard that now? It's like this. But it's actually not so easy, because you can be dismissive. It's like this, it's hot. Yeah, it's just Galilee, it's like this. Which isn't mindfulness, it's just whinging kind of thing. But it's like this should bring you to silence. It's like this. It's like this, that, and that rigorous presence of silent attention into the present is really what I think meditation should be about. Which isn't the same as just concentrating all the time. It's not like holding the mind, saying, it's like this. It could be anything. The experience can be anything. It can be painful or beautiful, but it's like this, and then sustaining that. And that's, I suppose, why I kind of, like these teachings, I try to refer back to awareness is the real thing, not the object. So there was a question on silence. I'm trying to blend all this in. Question about the dog. Two more. The last one. Can I get a refresh on your definition of silence? Is it the absence of thought? Something else? If it is the absence of thought, how is it different from awareness? It's the absence of thought. It's just silence, which is the absence of thought. And why I stress it, because people can be aware, but they can be commenting all the time. Just that kind of inner comment, dialoguing, or basically thinking. And yet they're present. They're present to that. So why I emphasize that is like really, it's like this, with no comment. Where it's like this. Is that what they mean? Is that what they mean when it's like this? That's thought. So it's like this. Or just like I say, listening. Listen to sound. And then notice the silence. And it's abiding as that silence where that we open to the unconditioned. There's like a gap or a crack in the worldly dharmas. So that's very important to notice the silence, because thinking is still a preoccupation with an object, still in the world of objects, and as long as it's the attention is not available, it's not open, but silence, then it's available. The rest is mystery. The rest is like grace, I suppose. I don't know what grace. I've been trying to figure out what grace is in Buddhism. But I think grace, like in Christianity, it's used a lot, grace, isn't it? Like I was reading about Simone Weil and how she had 3 mystical experiences, and you see that's grace. But what she says is that the factor that opens us to the unconditioned, she used different words, but is silence, attention which is silent, and I would agree with that. And that's for that question. That's why I kind of keep mentioning that. So it's not just about the sound, is it? It's the quality of attention. Now, when I say that, listen to the silence, and you put in desirelessness, and like tone it up with a bit of heart. I love you. So me, it's like tuning in, like this kind of radio. Do people use radio still? I don't know. You remember? We used to listen to Luxembourg, was it? Radio. Just kind of tuning it in. And that's very personal. That's very, very intuitive. And I mean, that's the way I kind of operate. My practice outside this retreat is 20 minutes every morning with a cup of coffee. Thoughts on that? Problem or no problem? Not a problem, but I would do 2 hours. I think you should honor that cup of coffee. I know, 20 minutes is like, I do 2 hours and with a cup of coffee. So I'd say up the ante to 40 minutes, double it, with one coffee. But there's so much debate about coffee. He's trying to get off coffee. And I say, come on, man, you're deserting me. I think, what do we got? I think I'll save that for at the end of the retreat. During lying meditation, I usually listen to sound. After a few minutes, I then watch for the strongest bodily sensation, often discomfort. With curiosity, I watch it to see what happens next. Correct or incorrect? Perfect. I do that too, yeah. So the thing about this way of practice is, if you're curious and you're not just into some kind of formulated structure of practice, which I think is very deadening, that you have to do it a particular way. But if you're curious and you just try stuff, like this mantra, I said, well, really? Well, why not? Let's give it a go. And you can't lose that way. You can just see what's the effect. And that also gives confidence, doesn't it? You say, oh, maybe I'll try that. And then you do try it. You put it into practice for quite a long time. And then for yourself, you see, well, that's a good effect. Why is that a good effect? Yeah, because it does whatever. So I always encourage that kind of intuitive part of ourselves where you read something and it sounds like it might be useful. I do that a lot. Okay, this is one I don't know if I can answer. I play competitive tennis and always want to win. It creates lots of wanting and tension, suffering. Should I watch it without aversion? Watch what? The ball? The other player? The suffering? I played a lot of sport, but it was always in groups. Like I rowed 8s for U of T, and I played a lot of basketball, volleyball, a little bit of squash. But I found the competition, that to win I had to be angry. I could play best if I got angry. I didn't like that. I didn't like that state of mind. We were with a group, it was kind of more fun. But obviously if someone likes competitive tennis, then there's something rewarding about it, and it's probably a downside. And the wanting and the tension, you could look at that. But if one thing creates aversion in stream of consciousness, then there's more aversion in stream of consciousness. Right? That's just the mind is going to be conditioned to more aversion. So the more aversion I put into the mind, then that habit is going to be there. And vice versa, the more compassion I put in. But if I'm playing competitive tennis and I'm compassionate and I don't compete, I'm not going to get a partner. I guess you find, for me, it's like those kinds of things are craft. Analogize, is that a word? I make an analogy with craft where with doing like furniture or weaving, you want to make a good thing. I don't want to just whack it together. I want the challenge of making a good thing, and yet I can suffer if it's not a good thing. So then I use that. I use craft a lot actually for looking at perfectionism and self-criticism. Because if I make something, I can't look at it for a month because I can see all the flaws. And then a month later I say, well, that's not bad. So I know that's the critical mind. But then I use craft to understand that part of my mind. Both the feelings, I can't do this, so okay, I'll do it. and then the feelings of pride or the feelings of self-criticism. So, I'm always actually aware of the mind and cultivating it in that way. So if it was analogous to, if competitive tennis analogous to craft, well, how can I really do this well? Really, really do it well and not muck about, but not get caught in all the emotions of win and loss, I guess. But then I've not really been in that realm much. What are views on meditating or trying to when your body just wants to sleep? Better to just sleep or better to try to meditate? Sleep. If you want to sleep, sleep. If you don't want to sleep, don't sleep. Because my insight of it is that as a young monk, we would have one meal a day, and the meal would be finished by 8:30, roughly. Yeah. So we'd go on 8:30, 9 o'clock, and that would be the meal for the day. So it was a pretty heavy piece of rice in my stomach, and mostly it was just sticky rice. So all your consciousness would be down here, and then I'd say, well, Ajahn Chah says, you should meditate after the meal, directly after the meal. And I could nod for 3 hours. Then I'd get up and I'd walk. Then I could nod in the walking. But then I found, why don't you just have a rest? A reasonable thing. And then I'd have I'd rest for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. Then my meditation would flow right through the evening. So I'm a advocate of napping. And when people say to me, I don't nap, I say, really? What's your problem? As a kind of prideful thing. It's great. One of the joys of life. But I suppose it's individual. But I found that pushing through sleep, I had to, in the forest tradition, we don't continue this practice at Tisran, or most of the monasteries don't do this, but once a week on the lunar quarters, we would have an all-night meditation. And the expectation was you give it a go. You just meditated till alms round at 6 and then went on alms round. And I had actually a couple of seizures because of lack of sleep. So I kind of messed myself up. But what I did learn from that I shouldn't do it, first of all, go without sleep. But I did see how much aversion I had to not being able to lay down. So getting through that aversion was a good ascetic practice in that way, but it didn't give a good result for me, kind of trying to... It gave a result where I could do this. I did fasting too, 10-day fasts and things like that. Kind of experiments that young monks do, but in the end, just live ordinary. Get enough rest, get enough food, and just keep maintaining the mind-body in a good way. But I think young monks, we like to do that. We just test ourselves and tough it out and things like that. We have a practice which is Sitter's practice. Very few monks have done this. I think Ajahn Arnprior did it for a year, where we don't lay down. And laying down is a hard one to give up, because it's so pleasant. Some traditions, Master Shunwa's tradition, I think that's like a lifetime practice or something. It's called Nitsachik, I think. And so there are these strong ascetic practices which come to us in the text, the 13 Tudanga practices. But I found, okay, I can do that, but the result for my meditation and awareness really wasn't all that helpful. And I probably had to do it just as a young monk to say, okay, I can do that. But with sleep, it's a very, very personal thing. So Ajahn Chah, he had such powerful samadhi, apparently, that he could just, his meditation was his rest. His mind was so very, very powerful. So there's that too, and very accomplished beings. But for me, sleep was kind of really important to get that right in energy balance. And I had a seizure at, as a samanera where I'd done two weeks of sitters practice and tried to stay up a lot, and I was in a small monastery. They usually had 5 monks. Ajahn Chah had come with another 15 monks, and there were like 30 or 40 lay people. I was the last in the row of monks. We'd gotten our food. We had chanted the blessing. We're sitting there looking at the at our contemplating the food, and all of a sudden I'm on the floor, biting my tongue off into a kind of a grand mal seizure. And I don't remember this. And Ajahn Bagro jumps down and puts a belt in my mouth so I don't bite my tongue off. And so 2 hours later I kind of come out of it, and what had happened is I had, in the seizure, I had flicked my head back, and there was a louvered window there. You know, it sliced my head open. So then I bounced on the floor, just get blood coming out of my, not pretty. And then they took me to horror stories. They took me to the local Amnat, which didn't have a clinic, but it had a veterinarian clinic. So they took me to the vet. And like, well, you know, they had no anesthesia or anything. And one of these curved carpet needles that I use for rug making. So they're holding me down. And Ajahn Bagro got ill and he left the room. So then I kind of walk out of there. I'm like totally dazed. And one of Ajahn Chah's disciples owned the Esso station. So Ajahn Chah's sitting at the Esso station drinking a Pepsi and enjoying himself, I guess. And he looks at me and says, "Take it easy, will you?" So I was very extreme when I was a young monk. I'm a bit of a more gentle creature now. What else have we got? Okay, that's done. I think I'm done. Yeah, there's one question, a couple I'll answer later. Right, so I think... So just to kind of conclude, like, keep that Four Noble Truths in the back pocket. Keep that as a reminder. So if something's not working in your meditation, don't just try harder. You know, you can be trying harder, but you don't understand actually what's going on. And just stop meditating. Okay, what's it like now? Okay, it's like this. Regroup and regroup. Because that's what I did. I would just try harder because I was very willful, and the results were not great. I mean, that's the way I had to learn. But just regroup and awaken. Come back to awakening. Yeah, it's like this now. And then see, like, because if you get to that place of awakened mind, then you can see, like, is your effort, are you trying to get something? Are you trying to get an experience? Are you looking for something? Or are you looking at what is? That's a big difference. But it can be so subtle in the mind you don't notice that. So then it's good just to stop doing whatever you're doing and just, it's like this. Then you have purity of attention. And then you can see, where you're coming from. All right, I'll leave you up for your reflection.
Annamayang Dhammakataya sadhu karang dadamase. Sadhu, 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 anumodami.
Okay, Zoom friends, see you tomorrow.